properly. Property. Anyway. Okay, this is absolute magic. Would you like me to teach you how to get this? Yes. Okay, great. So let's say we were buying a place worth $1 million, and the banks say they're going to lend us 70%, which would be $700,000, correct? We still need that $300,000, would you agree? Yep. But I don't have $300,000. And some of you probably don't have $300,000. And even if I had $300,000, which maybe I do, I'm not about to spend it in one go if there's another way around it. Yeah? So, what we do is approach the vendor and say, will you give us $300,000, please? That's all you need to do. Who believes me? No, you don't do that. What would you say to me if I came up to you and said, would you lend me $300,000, please? And you didn't know me? Yeah, get out of town. Probably a few other things. Yeah? But I was only kidding. So what you've got to do is approach the vendor in a very human way and start finding out their circumstances and what they want and need. Yeah? So you can say to the vendor, you know what, Mr. Vendor, I see that you're selling this property for $1 million. Now, the deposit that's needed is $300,000. The bank have agreed to give me $700,000. The only thing is, I don't really have that $300,000 ready right now. So here's what I'm proposing to you. I don't want to buy the property from you for $1 million. I actually want to pay you $1.1 million. Do you think you've got his attention? Yes. Excellent. See, Mr. Vendor, the thing is, I'm going to develop this property and I'm going to make $300,000 worth of profit. But I'm not actually going to make $300,000. I know I will, but I'm actually willing to take $200,000 and give you $100,000 of my profit, which is 10% of your purchase price. You wouldn't have made that money sitting on the property for another year. Does that make sense? Yep. Now, all I propose, though, is that if you agree to this, the way I'd like to do it is I'd like you to leave in your $300,000 in the property. Does he need to pull out cash? No. It's imaginary money that's just sitting in this block of land. Does that make sense? So I say, Mr. Vendor, I'm ready to give you $700,000 today. Okay, there's no problem. The bank have agreed to it. I'm going to give it to you today. In fact, I've done the whole site analysis of this property. I know it's going to sell. The town planner said it's fantastic for this area. And I've got people interested in buying the property already. Here's their signatures. They're ready to buy. So I know I'm going to make that profit for $300,000. There's no disputing that because it's already done. Yeah? But if you agree to this actual deal and you keep your $300,000 in here, I'll give you an extra $100,000. Are you happy with that? This property's been in the market maybe a year now. Maybe 2 years. Maybe 3 or 4. Does anyone know if properties have been in the market that long? Yeah, and it's because their asking price usually is too high. Well, if you've done the right numbers, you might find a way to make this work. So he says, well, you know what? That's really interesting. I'd love to make $1.1 million. You've got a deal. That is how vendor finance works. It's that simple. Did it cost the vendor any money? No, he didn't have to fork out, so it didn't hurt him. Does that make sense? Now, I've told the vendor that's going to take me 12 months to get this money to him. And because he's allowed me to wait 12 months before having to pay him the rest of the purchase price, I'm going to reward him by giving him an extra $100,000. The point here is I've made less profit. But who cares? Did I spend any of my own money? It's $200,000 I would never have had anyway without him. So the biggest point about property deal making is don't be greedy. Think of a way that it'll work for you with as little risk as possible, but think of a way that is generous and that will work for the other person too. Does that make sense? Because if you're not greedy, people are going to be willing to do the deal with you. Who would be willing to do a deal like this? Yeah, who knows the people that their properties have been on the market for so long? Yeah, and those people, would they be open to that kind of deal? Absolutely, because it's a win-win. Here's an example of how we did this for real life. This is Carly Crutchfield, the CEO of C Corp, one of my best friends as well. And this is a property in Katoomba that we're currently developing. The property was selling for over $2 million, but it was on the market for over 3 years. Okay? We negotiated it down to $1,450,000. All right? So it was a great negotiation. We got the price down. But then the bank turned around and said, but you're going to need $435,000 deposit. Now, us being us, we didn't want to put that money in because as soon as you put that money in, it means it can't be doing something else. Does that make sense? Yeah? So we decided, well, we've got it, but we're not going to put it in. So we spoke to the vendors and we told them the deal. We told them what we were going to make on the property. We told them what we were going to develop. They loved what we were going to do with the property. And we said to them, we'd like to do you a deal to make this work even better. We'd like to give you a percentage of the profits and one of the properties when it's complete. How does that sound to him? He not only made his money on the purchase, he continued to make money from that property after it's complete. Because that property, even if he doesn't live in it, will give rental returns as well. Does that make sense? Yeah? So what did he do? He decided to leave in $650,000. That is more than the required deposit. That allowed us to borrow 100% of the construction costs. We put $0 into this deal. Just so happens, the owner of this property in Katoomba in the Blue Mountains, if you know it, owned half of Katoomba as well. So we're looking at a whole load of other deals with him. Now, do you think the vendor was happy with that deal? Yes. Absolutely. Do you think we were? Yes. Oh, ecstatic. All right, let's move on. The next step, step 5, is getting your plans approved. This is a development application or a DA. Now, all it is pieces of paper telling the council what you're going to build and what you're going to turn that property into. Okay? Once that's approved, what you've done is created value and potential for that particular property. So is it worth more then? Yeah? Yes. So if you've got a property that's got a single house on there and you got the council to approve having 2 houses built on it, would that property then be worth more? Have you built anything? No. As soon as you've created potential for that property, you've then taken the property investment and turned it into a property development. It's as simple as that. You've not laid a brick. You've not done anything. Okay? You've turned into a property development. So how does that work? Let's say we've got this block of land. All right? And it's got that house on it. It's selling for $300,000. And we decide we're going to add potential to this property. We're going to subdivide the property and build another house on it. As soon as we've got approval to do that, we haven't done it yet, but as soon as we've got approval to do that, the development application costs us $10,000 to do. As soon as we've got approval, the property is now worth $450,000. How much money have we made? $140,000, $150,000. But have we actually made that in profit? No, we haven't. We've made that in potential. Does that make sense? Okay, because we've got the property approved. We haven't built, and even if we've built, we haven't made the money until we've sold. Does that make sense? Okay, so what if you could do all of that, all right, but you didn't need to own the property, which meant you also didn't need to pay interest on a regular basis? Because when you have that $300,000 property, let's say you got a mortgage on it, you paid $10,000 to get the DA approved, but you've also got to pay tax when you sell, etc., etc., etc. Is there going to be much left in your profit? No. But let's say we could do this without actually owning the property, without paying any interest whatsoever, and keeping all of that profit for ourselves. Who would be interested in that? Yeah. Oh, you're not very interested. There's only a few. Those that said woohoo, we can just continue it outside if you like. Who's interested in that? Fabulous, fabulous. Okay, so this is options. This is what we call options. People think it's this extremely complicated thing. It's not. It's simple as, and it's money waiting for you to pick it up. Okay? So options is a lay-by for property. Who understands lay-by here? Girls, come on. All right? So lay-by is when you purchase an item, but you don't have all the money for it. You put down a deposit, let's say $10, yeah? And you've got 6 weeks to make up the rest of the purchase. Would you agree that's how it works? In those 6 weeks, Can they sell that particular item to anyone else? No. Okay, great. Can they change the price on you? No. It's exactly the same for property, okay? Options are a lay-by for property. So here's you. You find a property that you want to buy, and the vendor's there as well, and you're speaking to the vendor. The property is selling for $300,000. You don't have the money to do this just yet. In fact, you don't want to do it, okay? You don't want to take a mortgage out to buy this property. So what do? You say to the vendor, I will buy this property using an option or a lay-by. It gives me the right to buy it from you, but I don't have to. With a lay-by, if you don't come back after 6 weeks and pay it off, do you lose the property? The purchase. Yes. But what else do you lose? Your deposit. But that's it, right? Okay, so for this option, I'm going to pay the vendor $3,000 or 1%. Okay? And he says, all right, I'll give you this option. I'll give it to you for 12 months. The longer your option, the better, by the way, because time itself adds value to the particular property. Would you agree? Yeah. Okay, great. So you give the vendor that $3,000 and you own the option. You then spend $10,000 to get this property approved for a subdivision to be rebuilt into 2 properties and have 2 houses on it. Yeah? Once that property is approved, or that DA is approved, you've created the value of $450,000. Yeah? Then you find a developer who is looking for a property like this for themselves to develop. And they're probably looking for one that's DA approved to save them a lot of hassle so they can continue to build and make their profits sooner. Yeah? Now, you sell, what do you sell to the developer? The option. And how much do you sell it for? $150,000, because that's the value you created. Does that make sense? So you sell the option to the developer for $150,000. He takes the DA then. So now the developer owns the right to buy the property, not the property itself. Does that make sense? He does not own the property. You've not sold him the property. You've just sold him the right to buy that property. Yep. He then pays the vendor the $3,000 that the vendor wanted and gives you $150,000. Who thinks that could be a really good strategy? The property then goes to the developer, everybody's happy. Now let's break it down and look at the numbers for this. The vendor receives $3,000 plus his $300,000 that he asked for. Did he get more than what he asked for? Yeah, absolutely he did. What do you get? You get $150,000 for having done minimal work on this particular property. You didn't lay a brick, and there was a nice $150 there for you. But you did have some expenses. What did you have? You had the $3,000 option fee, correct? And the $10,000 that you spent on the DA. Would you agree? So what are you left with the profit? 137. Who could be okay with having 137 out of that? Excellent. I would be. Remember, the deal is not to get greedy, guys. Here's an example of how we did this. This is a place in Redcliffe. Now, you all know Redcliffe. Yep. This is the street frontage. The place was valued without a DA at $3 million. It was right on the beach. Okay, so that's the street frontage and the back is right on the beach. So it was approved without a DA for $3 million. We went out. That's the back of the property. And the way it looks is absolutely stunning right on the water. We went out, got a DA, and we created it $4.5 million worth of value. So we added a $1.5 million worth of value on this property. Isn't that amazing? What if we decided to stop there and sell this option to someone else for $1.5 million? Who'd be happy with that? Oh yeah, absolutely. But we decided to check the numbers on this property, and we thought we'd take it a little bit further. This is the actual view from the property, by the way. So we thought we'd take it a little bit further, and we found out that if we continue to develop this property, there's even more money to be made here. Yeah? There was even more profits. And it was just a matter of, well, is it enough, and do we want to continue with that work? Because sometimes you can make a lot of money just by getting the property approved, DA approved, and then on-selling. A lot of property developers make hundreds, if not millions, hundreds of thousands I meant, if not millions, Just by getting properties DA'd, selling them, DA'd, sell, option, sell, easy work. But sometimes it's worth taking it even further. And in this case, we took it further, and the estimated profit is $6 million for us. $6 million after it's developed. Now, let's say we got our numbers wrong. We did a really good job on the numbers of this. But let's say we got our numbers wrong. We only made $5 million. Ouch, that's really bad. I don't care. Who would care? Absolutely not. So sometimes it's worth taking that step further, developing the property yourself, and earning the extra reward. So step 6 is construction. This is where you start building the property, and you need to do some project management. Now, do you need to know how to build? No. You get other experts in the industry to do it for you. You just project manage and oversee the overall development. In fact, you can hire a project manager as well. So this is the hierarchy of the construction process. There's a developer, and below you is your project manager. Below the project manager is the builder. Under the builder is the site manager, who oversees then the tradesmen. This is your team that you need to grow, you need to nurture, take care of, and these are the guys that will make it happen for you with regards to a property development. Step 7, selling off the plan. Now, I recommend selling off the plan because you don't want to get to the end of the development and realise that the market's changed or whatever have you, and you can't sell these properties. You want to be able to sell the properties before they're even built, so you've locked in your exit strategy. Does that make sense? Now, if you're going to sell off the plan, though, you want to make sure that you're, A, producing a quality product for the end user, obviously, because you want to take care of them as well. But you want to make the property lifelike and come to life for your particular client, so it's easier to sell. Does that make sense? So here's a site that we worked on, and what we did is we got some artist impersonations. Sorry, me not speak English. Impressions. Artist impressions. Done. So the people we were selling to could understand what the property was going to look like. They could visualize it, and it became less daunting and less risky for them. Does that make sense? Great. Who would like to do one deal and retire? Yes. Not very many of you. Who'd like to do one deal and retire? Yes. Excellent, excellent. So let's move on and I'll show you how to do that. Here's one of the first ones we ever did. Okay, 29 units. It cost $3 million to do this. We got 30% of private investors to put in their money, and we borrowed the other 70%. It took 18 months to build this. This is the first one we did, okay? This was the actual site in Northmead in Sydney, near Parramatta, if any of you know it. This is what it was going to look like when it was complete. This is when we were demolishing, and we'd started construction at this point, going on to the second story, and this is when it was all coming together. Now the property's complete. How did this work for us? We made, over $2 million on our first deal. Wow. And you know why? Because we knew the product cycle, or we took time to study the product cycle, knew when to get in and what money to make, etc., etc. It was the knowledge that it allowed us to be able to come up with these numbers. So let's look at the feasibility of this particular property. The first red circle, that's the profit margin of $2,039,000, and the last red circle is the margin on development cost, or the percentage profit, which is over 20%, 21%. So what are the banks looking for? 20%. So the banks were extremely comfortable with this. Does that make sense? And because they were comfortable, they were able to make this happen for us. We put no money in whatsoever. We got other investors, and we used the bank. That was it. And then we came out with over $2 million worth of profit for us. One deal. Who thinks they could retire on that? Absolutely. Here's another way to do it. Use joint ventures. Here's an example of how we use joint ventures. Joint ventures is basically having an agreement or a contract with any other person to do a deal with you. And you can create that to suit you in any way you like. Okay? So here's what we did. We did a project of 8 townhouses. Sorry, this is the one we're doing right now. 8 townhouses. The asking price was $660,000. We negotiated that down to $500,000. We had 3 partners doing this because they've seen, they're our students, they know what we do, they've seen the money that we make, they've seen the results we've created. They've come in and said, we want to be a part of it, but we want to be the developers too. Okay, great. Come in. They put in $250,000 each. Okay? It was going to take 12 months to complete. Now, they only did that on the proviso that we were able to guarantee their profits. Not just their capital, but their profits. If you were a first-time developer, wouldn't it be better for you if you were able to guarantee your profits? Yeah? So how do we do that? We actually gave them a title for each of the properties that would be complete. So not only will they get the profits of the ones we sold, they'll also own a property themselves, and that was the guaranteed value of the profits that we said they were going to make. That makes it a little bit safer for them, would you agree? Now here's the beauty of this joint venture. They also wanted to learn how to develop. So what do? We made them do all the work. They put in money, they did all the work, we gave them guidance, we gave them support, we helped with the negotiations, but was it a good deal for them? Yes. Absolutely, it was a fantastic deal for them. They learnt while doing the work. They wanted to do the work. Does that make sense? All we did was find the property, connect them, do this, and like, oh, here you go, there you go. We sit back, relax, they report to us every now and then, we say, yep, you're on track. We connected them. We did a property deal making. We're not actually the developer. They are. Does that make sense? But here's the profits. There's the property there. That's with the DA approval. It's in the Blue Mountains as well, in Blaxland. That's what we're looking to build. Destruction. You know what I mean. So they earned each $370,000, and our profits were $370 as well. A little bit smaller than the $2 million, but we didn't do any work. We just connected them. And they wouldn't have known each other if it wasn't for us. Does that make sense? So we make money on the fact that we connected them. We were a deal maker in this. Who thinks that could be a little bit easy to do? Who knows people that are looking to do properties? Absolutely. Here's the feasibility on that. The profit margin was $907,000. On this. The margin on development costs, or the percentage that we were making, was 47.46%. The banks were ecstatic. They were throwing money at us for this. Does that make sense? Great. Now, you can go out and do it yourself. Here's one of our clients and one of our students that, at our seminar, as she was driving home, found this deal and made it happen straight away. She was driving home, and what she found was a lot of land with a house on it or a building on it that needed to be renovated and created and build 3 townhouses. Okay, the price was $968,000. She had a deposit saved up for a home that she was going to buy. Instead, she bought this property. So she put her